Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 249 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian, and this is our final episode of the year in terms of regular episodes, I guess. Well, no, I guess that's it, because this Memory Text is going to come out in January. So this is our final episode of the year. It's our holiday finale. And in lieu of a first chop, actually, we have a special package for you, kind of. It's a little present.
We left you a package under the tree.
Yes, it's and this time it's a scare package. Scare package 2, Rad's Chad's Revenge, is coming out. By the time you listen to this, it'll be out tomorrow. And we have on our good buddy Aaron B. Koontz, who of course was responsible for the first one, and he doubles down and makes an even crazier sequel, which I think you guys will love, and you'll get to hear him talk all about it coming up.
Yeah, you guys are going to absolutely love this movie. I watched it today, and it's just, as I say in the interview, it's bonkers, but in the best way possible. So I know you guys are going to really like it.
Yeah, I'm like torn. I think I like the second one even better. I don't know.
Yeah. And you guys are going to love this interview. Aaron's such a cool dude, and he's he really goes into a lot about the creation of the movie, and you could just tell his passion for not only the scare package, but for horror in general. So I know you guys are going to dig this interview.
Yeah, he really is. He's one of us. He's one of he's a horror fan.
One of
us.
And
he'd probably like that reference if we did that. Yeah, no, he's seriously. He's like, you'll hear. He's totally one of us. He's part of the mutant family. He's just a horror fan and movie fan first.
Yeah,
and he just happens to make awesome movies, and he's like living the dream, really.
All right, so in lieu of our first chop, here is our interview with Aaron B. Koontz. Okay, everybody, if you're like us, you loved the hit anthology Scare Package and are excited about the sequel, Scare Package 2, Rad Chad's Revenge. So tonight, we're thrilled to discuss the highly anticipated sequel with the creator, Aaron B. Koontz. Welcome back to the show, Aaron.
Hey, I'm so stoked to be back talking about this movie. It's fun.
Yes, thank you. So for those who missed our first interview with you way back when Scare Package debuted, for shame if you guys missed that episode, because it was a great interview.
It was a good one.
Can you give us kind of a high-level overview of some of your projects for those that don't know?
God, okay, yeah. I mean, we have been busy by design. So, we really specialize in a lot of like mixed genre stuff. So horror at the core, but I made a horror Western called The Pale Door that I directed, co-wrote with Cameron Burns and Keith Lansdale, and then Joe Lansdale, his father, who's a big horror author, big author in general, helped us out with. And my first feature is called Camera Obscura that released with NBC Universal. And then, we produced a ton of films as well. And so recently we just had Blood Relatives that came out that was on Shudder, Noah Segan's debut. We had Old Man that Lucky McKee directed, starring Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
That came out in October. During the summer, we had Revealer come out that Luke Boyce directed, written by a couple great comic book folks, Michael Morisi and Tim Seeley. And and then we've got, upcoming, we've got Sorry About the Demon that's going to come out. I also produced Chris Stuckman, who's a pretty big YouTuber. His feature debut, Shelby Oaks. That's like our big movie that's coming out next year.
I heard about that. Okay.
Yeah. That's been a lot of fun. And there's a few other things. We got a Creature Restoring, Damien Levesque, the guy who did Cleansing Hour, his next movie. We've got that's a Christmas horror thing that's in post now too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we love that one too. So I heard about this one. We're super excited about this one too.
Yeah, and the monster creature effects in this are just insanity, like complete insanity, which was really, really rad. And then we've got a little kind of indie sci-fi thing that's called The Artifice Girl that premiered at Fantasia and won best international feature there. and that'll be coming out in early 2023 as well. So yeah, and there's more. We got more too. We make a lot of movies, but but Scare Package is kind of this weird linchpin project, like in between all of them. Sorry About the Demon is from Emily Higgins, who directed Cold Open from Scare Package 1.
Oh.
And then Noah Segan did Blood Relatives, where his directorial debut was the Mister segment in Scare Package 1. So
okay.
There's a lot of ties back to this whole world and what we're doing.
Yeah, so you're basically trying to tell us you have lots of free time, apparently, right?
Yeah. It's
oh my God, I don't know how you do it. We were just talking before how we can't even handle this week between our real job and this and that, and you got like 15 movies coming. It's amazing.
Yeah, look, the one thing I will say is I'm my own boss, right? So that's the one benefit that I have. I don't have to deal with the real job side of things, quote unquote. So I'm able to kind of move things around to what I need to do. But yeah, I mean, time management has become something I've had to force myself to be very, very good at. Yeah.
So of course, I know everyone's going to want to get. We're excited to talk about this too. So we'll get right into Scare Package 2. So did you always have this planned as a sequel, or did you feel sort of obligated to create one after like the immense popularity and success of the first one?
Oh man, no way did I think this was going to have a sequel. No way in hell. Are you kidding me? Like, this was the movie that was literally created out of frustration. So I mentioned my first feature, Camera Obscura. That thing kind of fell on its face, right? Like, it didn't end up the way I thought it would be. My cut of the film was never released publicly. I'm still very proud of what we did in that, but no one's ever seen my cut. Like I can't even show it to you guys. It doesn't exist out there. And so this was kind of our answer to that, which was get our friends together, tell some stupid jokes that like made me, Cameron, Alex, my other fellow creators laugh. And then, kind of, fingers crossed somebody likes the shit. That was it. I mean, it was all privately funded, it was just putting our own money into it, borrow money from friends, like whatever we could do. And then all of a sudden, cut to a couple years later and people are dressed up, Halloween. We have all this fan art and Fright Rags t-shirt line, and people have tattoos of Scare Package shit. And I'm like, what has happened? Like what just happened? So and then I mean, when Cameron and I really got serious about it was honestly the weekend that the last drive-in thing happened. We knew it was going to premiere on there, but I was like, well, that's a lot of people that might hate it. And I didn't know, and then it just had such a wonderful, and keep in mind, as a filmmaker, when I'm a producer, I can usually be much more pragmatic and like look at this and just like, I'm just producing this. So, I'm putting together all these pieces. But when I'm writing, directing as well, imposter syndrome stuff comes up and you just think like, nobody's going to like this. Nobody's going to want to watch this. Nobody's going to give a shit. So when they did, it was like, oh shit. Oh my God. like this is cool. So what now? Oh no. And then it's like, oh no, we killed all our favorite people. like, what do you do? And yeah, and then I mean, God, we have a sheet, like a Google Doc that we share that has like 20 Scare Package ideas on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It just goes to all these wild places. So, but yeah, it was never entertained until, folks like yourself started talking about it.
Yeah, well, and the thing about, I think what's so great about when something's on the last drive-in too is it gets that the tweet along and the conversations between people, and even people that might have missed it now see all this activity going on, all their pages of their followers and people that they follow, and that they're like, oh my God, what did I miss? I got to see this now, and it's such an amazing thing with that the community that just comes around that. So it's like, I know we had seen it a couple times by that point, by it hit the last drive, and so when I knew when it was going to hit that, I was like, oh my God, this thing is going to blow up. This is going to be way too popular for this for this crowd is that's going to watch this is going to go nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. That response that night, my phone literally died because of all the texts, calls, tweets, everything. It actually crashed. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, Aaron, Brian and I are huge horror comedy fans, and there's always that balance act between too much comedy, too much horror. How do you get that perfect blend? So, what's a little of your thought process that goes into when you're setting out to make a horror comedy? What's kind of your thought process on getting that balance right?
Yeah, well, it's a little different because I do think of Scare Package more as comedy horror than horror comedy. So I think it comes from a different place. But I think comedy and horror come together very nicely because they're both this setup and payoff style of filmmaking and what's there. And then what's great is if you have something that's really scary and then you can give this moment of levity with comedy. I think Jordan Peele does this really, really well. Like he'll have like really funny moments within these unbelievably tense scenes that kind of juxtapose what you're going through, and then you kind of leave your guard down for just a second, and then he like hits you with something else, you know. And I think that's extremely effective. And again, I don't think of those as horror comedies, but just the way he uses comedy within a horror film. When it comes to Scare Package, though, so much of this is just so fucking goofy that like I don't expect it to be scary. Like that's not really our intention, but it can still be horror. Horror to me is not defined by scares. Horror is defined by tone and atmosphere and gore and your setting and your characters. So we are 100% a horror movie, but the comedy is such an important piece of this because again, Scare Package wouldn't exist if, you know, my creating partner, Cameron Burns, was like, look, we need to make an anthology. I didn't want to make one. And then I was like, well, let me go back and, you know, review all of these and see what really makes sense. And it was the comedies in the segments that the comedic segments in the anthologies that I loved the most. And I was like, well, let's just do all that. So, and then especially when it comes to the second one, we kind of figured out our tone because in the first film, there's a variety of different styles of comedy, you know, and we're like, what's kind of really landing and where do we want that to go? And we're experimenting a little bit. Now here we kind of there's one segment that kind of stands out in a very different way, but that was also intentional and that we wanted to kind of, again, create a little bit of a lull and then kind of get back into the absurdity and what was there, even though that segment, which is Jed Shepard's, special edition, is also still absurd in its own way, you know, and how it fits into the whole. So yeah, I mean, with us, the nice thing about Scare Package, and this is again established because this movie came out of a desire and a frustration in the industry. So it was just, there are no rules. Do whatever the fuck you want and just if it makes us laugh, go with it. Like that's it. And so that's what's driving this forward more so than like I'm trying to make a movie like this. It's more like if that happened, I would laugh at that, and then we lean into it and we just go from there.
Oh, yeah, one thing I loved about it though is it's such a movie made for horror fans. I mean, you could tell this movie is completely made for horror people that love horror, and I love that fact about it. That there's so many. I mean, there's so many winks and nods to other horror movies, obviously. But you could see that kind of passion for horror, even though it's largely comedic. You could tell there's that passion there, just a love of the genre itself that comes through the movie.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like, and it's true. I mean, you know, I am personally a weird mix of, you know, Rad, Shad, and Sam. You know, at times, like I worked at a video store. I've got horror tattoos. You know, it's just this is all part of my DNA. And so that's important because I think when you're doing horror comedy, especially when you're doing things that are a partial parody, you don't want to be punching down, you know, you want to be embracing this and like kind of taking it in and realizing like how much you love it. And that's something, you know, from the first Scare Package, something really special happened. And I'm so proud of this. And we really leaned into it in the second one, but people would watch it and you'd have the diehard horror fan who's watching it. And then you have the casual horror fan or not even, they don't even really watch a lot of horror films, but they can watch this because it's not scaring them. They just have to turn away from some of the gore, but otherwise they're still laughing and they're enjoying it. But when those two people get together and they watch that, the diehard horror fans like, oh, by the way, did you know that's a reference to this? And they're like, oh no, I haven't seen that. The next thing you know, they're out and they're watching that movie. And then what have we done? We've now kind of inadvertently, you know, kind of evangelized these other horror films that I love. And it's me back in the video store again, being like, you gotta see this. Like, come on, you know, 16-year-old me talking people into watching horror films. So in a weird way, I'm still out here just trying to talk to people into watching horror films, you know, and these things that I love. And and I want to see them experienced by everyone, because I'm such a lover of the genre in every way. And so were my fellow directors and the team that I work with and put it together. Like that was, your love for horror was kind of like a prerequisite. We really needed to see what was there. And so in the sequel, we really lean into that, and it's fun because there's even some films, like, Dreamwares is one of my favorite sequels of all time. And that's heavily riffed a few times in here. Obviously the Saw sequels, but even like Hellbound and Friday the 13th Part 2, we really try to focus on sequels, in this one, obviously. Because again, the whole thing's about horror tropes. There's no bigger horror trope than what happens in the horror sequel. Like that's when shit just goes off the walls. And it's like, well, that's perfect for scare package, right? Yeah. So, but now, somebody's sitting there and they're like, what? He's this skin guy and he's wearing this white suit. And like, what does that mean? It's like, oh, that's actually a reference to Frank and Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And they're like, what? And then they want to watch that scene. And they're watching the scene and, and it's like, oh my God, and next scene, now all of a sudden somebody's watching Hellbound because of Scare Package 2. And like, that makes me really happy, and it's fostering that kind of horror community through our own movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and it's funny too, because like, and then you have like, people that are quote horror experts, then they get to like have fun finding all the references, that they do know and pulling it. So it's great. It's like, yeah, it's for, that's what's so good. It's for every level. Yeah,
I was trying. Right? I was sitting there trying to. I was like, I'm gonna see how many of these I can. And I was like, after about halfway through, I was like, I'm just gonna. I can't keep up. There's too many. There's too many references to jot down.
Yeah, and plus there's always like I feel like there's like a class, like a soon to be classic line in almost every other line in this thing. There's just some lines that crack me up. I don't want to give too many. I mean, this is going to be we'll give a spoiler warning ahead of this this interview. But yeah, I mean, there's just some lines in there, like the whole thing with the bees. I was hysterical with the bee just came out of you. Thing and it comes just stuff like that, like just has you always like, I think, laughing and cracking up through it while still being like this through this horrific scene if you take out the comedy aspect of it. But yeah, so
that's funny. Yeah, well, the beast, it's interesting you even bring that up, because the whole reason, like, we didn't go in trying, and so we call them segments within this, but like we call them rooms, so it's like the rooms that lead to a segment. Anyway, it's kind of our internal logic. But I didn't go in there thinking I wanted to have a room that was a Wicker Man style room. Like, that wasn't the intention. The intention was really like, well, part of it was we're doing Saw riffs. So there was like Jigsaw when they wake up with the pale heads, and the chains. And so there's a tie to that. But then it was a twofer. And I was like, well, I had this line that was in my head where someone said, horror is a beat, horror. Someone I know, and that's like a family friend, and I was talking about what I do, and I make, I was like, I make horror films, and they're like, oh, you make those B movies kind of thing, and I was just like, okay, well, all right, go tell John Carpenter that and see what the fuck happens. Right? So it just kind of like set with me, and I got frustrated, and I shouldn't have. And then one day I was writing all of the Jigsaw quote unquote esque lines that we were mocking. And this line came to my head, and it was, you called horror a B movie. Well, now the real horror is the 10,000 bees I just put inside you. and that was it. Like, that's literally all that it was. And that made me laugh. I was like, fuck, this is funny. I'm writing it down. I'm highlighting it. I'm like, so I have this sheet of ideas in like my notepad on my phone, and I just bolded that one. And I was like, I don't know what we're doing. I just texted the guys and like, how are we gonna put bees inside people? Aaron, we can't do these crazy ideas that you come up with. And I was like, that means we have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, whenever it's that, like, that means we have to do it. And then, then you get to take that and you're like, okay, then what would be a Saw style trap with that? And yeah, it leads to the bees and the cinnamon and the whole thing and all that, and just gets dumber and dumber. And then next thing you know, you're in something. But again, that all started from just a line in my head that I thought was funny.
I know. I'm like every time you tell a piece of your process, like I love it more. It's like, because it seems like it's like, that's what Tim and I feel like we do that with our podcast. We're like, you know what? It's funny to us, and we'll crack up. We're like, hey, someone out there will probably laugh at it. If they do. If not, we're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really all you can do. You can't make something for everyone. Like, it's like, okay, what are me and my friends? And look, if nobody liked the first Scare Package, then yeah, that would have happened. But people did, so I'm like, well, let's lean into it.
So Well, speaking of the segment, one of my favorite personal ones was the first one was the night he came back again, part 4, the final kill. And so I was thrilled to see that this one came back again in Scare Package 2, which literally, if there's any one segment for the first one that would be perfect for this, I mean, it's like it had to come almost in there. But was that something like, did you feel the same way? You're like, okay, we have to get that back in to Scare Package 2.
Yeah, well, not initially. I would say off the bat, right, when we first were kind of talking about this, one of the original ideas was getting everyone back and just kind of, doing a different set of this. And then that quickly became impossible for a variety of reasons, just schedules and what was going on. So then it was like, okay, we're going to get all new ones in. But then I kept coming back to the fact that Anthony Cousins and John Karsko, who wrote that segment, really were commenting on sequels, and so much of what Scare Package 2 is about is the absurdity that happens in the horror sequel, and the fact that there truly are no rules, and Jamie Lee Curtis can cut off Michael Myers' head and H2O, and he could show up in the next movie, right? So it's like that type of world, just that type of freedom is really crazy. And he was already tapping into this, and I was like, well, this is fun. And then what really got me in, and I really had an itch to scratch, was when I realized that I had never seen a sequel to a segment in an anthology. And then I was like, oh shit, now we have to do it.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think there has, as far as I know, I don't think there's one. So
yeah, I've yet to encounter one.
The only one I could think of, maybe even close, would be the doll from Trilogy of Terror, because wasn't there a segment with that doll in Trilogy of Terror 2, possibly? But I don't know if it was like a direct sequel. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, like that. I mean, I don't remember Trilogy of Terror 2 very well. But even if it is, I've yet to see anything that was like this overtly.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just it features the same character. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a direct.
Yeah, that might make sense, because we looked into all that. But yeah, so that just got me excited. It was like, okay, well, I haven't seen that before, so that means we need to do it. Again, it's that those are the types of things that kind of get me going. So, and Anthony and John and Ryan Shadley does all his makeup and everything. Like they're just a really good unit that you can trust. And I just felt like there was more to the story with Daisy, and this killer that you find out is her brother in the last second of the first Scare Pack, which is just a funny throwaway line. And then it's like, well, let's build off of that, and that's what became really, really fun. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we're not making any kind of statement that, one segment was better than the other to deserve a sequel from the first one. It wasn't that at all. It was just, he's already playing in this playground so wonderfully that, as you said, you kind of have to. Because, I mean, look, if you're making a sequel about sequels, then you need to make a sequel to your segment about sequels that's talking about more sequels. Right? Like, exactly. You gotta lean into it everywhere you can.
Well, I loved it too, though, because it's kind of just like the whole movie is kind of a love letter to horror fans. That's kind of a nice callback to fans of the first Scare Package. So it kind of gives them something to to enjoy. So I have another segment I want to talk about, and that was, of course, is Jed Shepherd's, because it brings back all the talented actors from Host. How did this segment come to be? Because I loved the whole 3 Men and a Baby ghost thing, because I love those like film urban legend things, like the Hanging Munchkin and Wizard of Oz and the 3 Men and a Baby ghost. I mean, I eat that stuff up, so I was really excited to see that. How did that whole segment come about?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. Like, so Jed and I became pals, during the pandemic. We were on Clubhouse a lot when that was a thing. Like, I think that blew up for like a little period of time, and Jed and I got on there a lot. We were in this horror room together, and then had been like Twitter pals, and whatnot. And obviously was a huge fan of Host. And actually, originally Jed was connecting me with another filmmaker that I wanted to direct, because I wrote Cameron and I wrote We're So Dead, which is the last segment, and we were trying to find a different director to kind of direct that for us. And because I didn't want to direct any more of this movie, I already had too much. And so then that director didn't work out. We were trying to figure something out. And then this other director fell, and this is what always happens in these anthologies. Like, you have these directors lined up, and then schedules and things fall through. And I was kind of, bummed, and I was telling Jed about it, and we're on a Zoom, and he's like, I'm right here. Right. Like, and I'm like, well, oh shit, dude, do you want to direct? He's like, yeah, of course I want to direct. Like, come on, let's talk about this. And I was like, fuck, I feel bad. And so we started talking about ideas, and he had pitched a couple things. And the biggest thing that I wanted is I wanted a segment that was J horror influence, because again, we were, every segment is subverting a different set of horror tropes, right? So there's a theme to each segment, and they're all part of horror tropes, right? Is the theme of everything scare package. To the title itself is a horror trope, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Shopping Mall and stuff like that. So everything is a trope. But this, J horror made sense. The Ring, and Ju-on, and like there's stuff there that we wanted to play with. And then we couldn't quite land, and we were doing this technology thing with like the Ring, and like she can't crawl out of like a phone because it's too small, and there was like some funny jokes that we had. And then all of a sudden we were just talking about, and I honestly don't recall who brought it up. He says he did. I think I did, but whatever, because I literally had the Laserdisc. So when we got Laserdisc, I'm dating myself here a little bit, but we got a Laserdisc player. It was like a big deal in our family, and we bought like 5 Laserdiscs. And I want to say they were like Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tombstone, something else, and then I think the Burbs, and then it was 3 Men and a Baby. And the reason why it was 3 Men and a Baby was because I got my friends over. I wanted it. That was when I wanted the most, crazily, because I wanted to bring them over, and I wanted to go frame by frame and see that ghost. Because on the VHS that we had, we couldn't pause it and see clearly what was going on. And this is like early internet days, and I didn't even know if you could search it on the internet at that time, what was going on. So that was me doing that. And I talked with Jed about it, and he's like, oh my God, I love that urban legend. We both kind of geeked out over it. And we're like, well, what if the 3 Men and a Baby Ghost like came out? And then it was like, oh shit, that's it. And again, it was one of those things where like, that's so ridiculous, that means we have to do it, and then Jed knew Trevor Henderson. He's just so talented. He designed the Stabby monster that's in that, which I think is such a cool creature design. And then, and I was like, let's get the host girls together. And I originally wanted there to be some more specific host jokes in, where it's kind of riffing host, but we decided to kind of lean more in a different direction, and that's fine. I'm still a little miffed about that. I think we could have fun, but I totally get why Jed wanted to do that. And yeah, that was great. And it's fun. I love that one of the first images is all of them together, looking at the camera, and that type of thing. So it's like, boom, they're all here. Remember all these people from this movie that was such a huge hit. And it's fun to kind of have them in the same room, and this like going from one of the scariest movies ever made to like this completely silly thing.
I still think you captured like some of the spirit of Host, though, just because I think that group together is always so good. They're how they're friends in real life. They have great chemistry on screen. So I think you still got that warm feel, almost like when you before you could get a movie at home, if you got the soundtrack, it kind of bring you back to the movie a little.
Sure.
I feel like it's the same way. It's like, even though there are no overtly constant references to Host, you got like anyone that's seen it already kind of has that feeling. So I think you didn't even I think what it was perfect, because you really did get that feeling. You're like, oh, I love seeing these people all together again.
Yeah. No, and Jen and them, they all are super close, all very, very good friends. And yeah, I mean, there's a little, commentary on technology and stuff that does tie into Host, but other than that, yeah, it's just really getting that fun gang back together, and I'm glad we did.
And I will say the coolest thing I think is the close-ups of that little dial that you'd had with the Laserdisc players, that could scroll instead of the usual fast forward buttons. When Laserdisc came out, and some of the early DVDs too, you had that dial, and it's fun. It made you feel like an editor or something. It's like it was such a unique thing for someone at home to play around with.
Well, we were worried people wouldn't know what was going on, so that's why we had to put some of when she's playing, when Gemma's playing with the remote, we're putting the images of what she's pressing on screen, so you can kind of connect that. Because at first I was like, I don't know if people are going to know what this scroll around thing is, Yeah.
See, obviously I dated myself, because I knew exactly what it was back in the age of Laserdisc. So. This one, we kind of asked you this similar last time, because obviously with any anthology, the wraparound segment is extremely important. With this one, obviously the stakes are a little higher. It's a sequel. So what what, like, how did you guys plan this, the wraparound? Like, did you instantly say, okay, it's like, it's going to be, takes place at this funeral thing, or did you have like any other kind of ideas, or, you know, like basically what was the process you came about coming up with this wraparound, which is brilliant, by the way. It's a brilliant wraparound.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said that about the importance of the wraparound, because one of the reasons why our wraparound is so vital is because I actually think in a lot of anthologies, it's not important at all. It becomes this complete afterthought. And you have these ones where, you know, great anthologies, again, I'm not taking away from the anthologies as a whole. There's great anthologies, but you're just like, okay, just give me the next segment. Like, it's just like doing something simple. And so we really wanted to be able to pull out the segments and you have this cohesive story that hopefully, because with anthologies, there are always going to be things that are hit or miss because you have different styles that are intermixed, right? So it's not going to work for everyone. But if a segment's not working, then they can be excited to come back to the main story and not overstay your welcome. Then you can come back and forth. It kind of gives you more way to balance it. So that was what was there. And then, coming into the sequel, look, I think I've said this a couple of times, but I think there was an easy answer. The easy answer was just go back to Rad Chat's Horror Emporium, put in tapes, and we could do this forever. And we could make sequels to this, for 20 years. And then that, again, was why I didn't want to do it. So the same reason why somebody says something and it's like, there's this idea, like, how are we going to do this here? And it's so crazy. And I'm like, that means we have to do it. It's the opposite as well. If it's so obvious to me, then we can't do it. And I want to throw those ideas out because it would have been fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it would have been such a joy, and Jeremy King's so great, and we could have done some kind of prequel or something, or who knows, we could have done anything that could have made that work. But I just wanted to go a different direction, and I wanted to take this somewhere crazier. And yeah, we had a couple different ideas. They all started at the funeral, though. I just thought that was really exciting to me at Rad Chat's funeral, because coming off the first film, and him dying, it's like, it was fun for me to think of the people that would show up to that, and what kind of characters you could bring in and what that could mean. So that became really exciting. But then I will say, that summer when I was writing it, Spiral was coming out, and I was rewatching the Saw sequels. And, and look, and this movie is very heavily, Saw 2 in particular, very heavily Saw 2 inspired. But as I'm going through and I'm watching them, and I'm getting to like 3, okay, there's something, 4, 5, 6, and like Carrie Elways is showing up at the end, and like they have flashbacks, and I'm just like, what is going on? And look, I consider myself like a moderately intelligent person, but I truly don't know what's happening in some of these sequels. Like I like actively watching, like, and I'm rewinding, and I'm like, wait a second. So if that was that, then how is this person? And then they would do things where there's like a person in the audience at a flashback scene that like raises their hand, and then all of a sudden she becomes a huge part of the next sequel. And it's like, what? Or they'll show a flashback and there's 2 people sitting at a table, just give or take. Then the next time they show it, it's wider, and then there's 2 other people that were there. You had no idea were there the whole time. And I'm like, what is this? And it was so wild. And there's a moment, without spoiling anything too much here, there's a moment at the end of Scare Package where a character is like, do you know what's going on? Like, what the hell is happening? Says that out loud. And that is just me watching Carrie Elways show up and like Saw whatever number it was, but then that also meant, oh my God, this is our opportunity, because it's a huge horror franchise. It's in the era that I want to play with. We knew we were going to do some Saw jokes. But then also, we were in quarantine at the time. You're kind of quarantining this group of people that they all want to escape. There's something kind of there that I was playing off of. But then there was also escape rooms were kind of becoming popular as well. And the fact that somebody would misconstrue this as just some fun escape room, where now there's like pretty crazy escape rooms that exist. So
I've actually done the Saw escape room, by the way, in Vegas, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I remember looking at pictures of that and stuff too, for some of the things that we did and we were designing, and that I gave to my production designer, Joshua Miller. But it just kind of was, it was something that was like on this level of absurdity, but like almost still believable, like that Chad would actually go to these lengths and do something like this because he's wanting to show them something, and some fun thing. And so once we kind of landed on that in the Saw kind of aspect of it, it just got really exciting. And then the real kicker, the final kind of, cherry on top was, well, now I get to come up with the dumbest saw traps ever. And then I'm like, okay, this is it. This is our narrative structure.
Yeah, that sequence, there were some sequences in there brilliant. I'll say them after we're done with the interview real quick, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But I think that was it was like so perfectly like placed the way you did all those things. And like I said, and now everyone's listening to like, well, what is it? What is this? Well, you're gonna have to watch the movie, because when this releases, it's coming out the next day. So you won't have to wait very long. And then you can go listen.
I thought it did a great job setting the tone, because I mean, to be honest, going into Scare Package 2, I thought it was, like you said, was going to be just more of this, which was fine. I like Scare Package. I would have been perfectly happy with the same kind of wraparound. But when I saw how crazy it was going, it did set the tone for the rest of the movie, because the rest of the movie just goes completely bonkers in a good way. That was I definitely see where you're going with that. Next question here was, Scare Package 2 has fewer segments than the original. And was that intentional, or were there any segments that you guys filmed and cut, or maybe wrote and just never filmed?
There was one segment that Cameron and I also wrote, and because again, it was during the pandemic, so we were making some movies during this time, but you'd have to quarantine in these places, and you can't really go anywhere. So we did a lot of writing, and every now and then, we would just have some idea. I'm like, oh my God, I have another segment idea. And then, we jump on Zoom and just, go through it. So, but yeah, there was one that didn't end up making it. But I think, we intentionally wanted to cut it down a little bit. I think, again, the first one was a little more experimental, like how many do you want to have and what the balance was. And it just, I thought it just went too long, the first film. And we wanted to shorten it. We tried to shorten this even more. Anthologies are just really hard to get the runtime down. But we got down to like 97, 98 minutes, with credits, and it's like a 6-minute credit sequence. So it's a 90-minute movie. So that made me happy. That was important. But then also selfishly, as kind of like the creator of all this, and like we own all Scare Package, Shudder just licenses from us. This is our movie and our baby. And I was like, well, no, I want to do more. Like I had ideas for where I wanted to go with the funeral, and where I wanted to go with these saw traps, and all of these things that kind of come through that was important to me. And because I hire everyone, I hired myself selfishly to do more of it, and then that meant there was less to go around, to be very honest. It was something I wanted to do. And because what we learned was, people really loved Rad Chad, people loved Sam, and characters that, Rad Chad was, meant to die at the first one. He wasn't supposed to be, there. So how do you work Rad Chad back into this? So when putting him on the, again, he should be on a videotape playing, and there became fun Pothamus things that we could do there. And, and then again, Sam, we can have Sam come back. He's in all the marketing materials, so it's not like a spoiler, but Sam can come back from the first one, even though he does get an axe to his stomach and all his intestines fall out. But, but then it's so great. You can explain anything away, because in this universe, and you're talking about, horror sequels, there are no rules. So then I just have Rich Sommer, from Mad Men, do this really dramatic, like, you can't kill pure evil. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like my Jaws push-pull shot, and then all of a sudden, like, he's showing up. And that became one of my favorite moments, in the movie. So, it's again, you just lean into like what feels right, and then you rework everything around it. And what felt right was a bigger main story. And that's why this one, we even kind of, it's really like I directed Scare Package 2, and then we have 4 segments that we like leave and watch. Because again, I remember someone, I don't remember if it was Letterboxd or somewhere, somebody made something about, I hate this meta shit. It's just too meta. It's so ridiculous. And I was like, well, then if Scare Package 1 was too meta, then I'm going to make you like heave watching this because this is just going to be so meta. Like, you're literally watching the movies with our characters watching the movies, and so that kind of level that just excited me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's so good because the wraparound is almost like it really is like could stand on its own almost because it's such a good story. And we just saw a what was it, Holiday Hell, right? Last week, where the wraparound segment was actually the best part of the movie. The smaller segments were okay, but the wraparound, I mean, it starred Jeffrey Combs. So you had here like this elite horror actor in there, and so like, and he basically had the wraparound segment like steal the thing. Now in this, it's like everything is great, but what's so good about it is the wraparound segment could still like stand on its own, and then so it's like it's almost like we get a bonus by getting to watch all these short films in it too. So
Fun. Yeah, again, that's important from the get-go. The wraparound needs to be its own entity, that if the segments are removed, you still have this like cohesive narrative, that's there. Now we are trying, because we reverse engineer some of this, right? So the last thing we shot was all the wraparound stuff, right? It was the scare package too, the Rad Chad's Revenge portion of all this. So we don't do, segments back to back to back. We do a segment, we stop, we get into post, we analyze it, we see what's working, what's not, so like we're developing with the director and the writer, getting the idea right, honing it in, then we produce it, put it together, it's there, and then we go into another segment. So it's a much longer process than would typically, other feature films that we make. But that's deliberate because it allows us to say, ooh, here's something really fun we realized happens in this movie. Now I can write that into how it connects. And that's a luxury that normally you don't have, because you get into post and you realize things have changed. There's this old adage of there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you make. And so it's just changing all the time. And you kind of go through this process. So if you have the ability to make a portion of that movie that informs other pieces of that movie, then you're able to really kind of dial in the right ways to make it work. So, and some more than others, in what ways we were able to kind of layer them in. But like, when you think of the ending with like We're So Dead, that segment, so is intrinsically tied to what the events that happen immediately after it, in the ending of the film. So that kind of challenge, again, it makes it more difficult and logistically challenging to put together, but I think hopefully it feels more rewarding to the viewers because it doesn't feel as disjointed as maybe other anthologies do.
yeah, no, it was great. I just and I love that segment too. I didn't want to like not say that segment either because I know you did a good job on that one too. So here's the big question though. Will there be a Scare Package 3? And if it continues, will Rad Chad eventually get to space? It's like all these other horror movies tend to go there.
I will say when we were touring festivals, the original ending of this, like I always love like at the end of Back to the Future 2, where it's like, Doc and we'll return and Back to the Future 3, that kind of stuff. I always love those. So I did put that actually at the end of the credits, and we had something that was in there and for Scare Package 3, but we ended up removing it because I don't know exactly what I want to do with it if we did have that luxury. So I will say that in my head, I do have, and Cameron, we created this together. We have a bit of what we call like a Rad Chad trilogy, I will say, in particular. Because look, I think the horror trilogy is like an even, that's an even more specific thing and how those work. So we do have some ideas with that, but there's also there's a lot of fun places we can go with this and a lot of direction. But I will say, wherever, again, just like going from Scare Package 1 to Scare Package 2, if you thought that shift was crazy, I guarantee you the stuff I have in mind for 3 is even more ridiculous, because it's like, okay, now I have to go even further. If we dial this to 11, I have to get a whole new dial then to start,
I love it.
I know. You're not scaring us away. You're just getting or whetting our appetite even more.
Yeah. So we'll see. But we'll see. Again, hopefully, people dig it. If they watch it, please watch it, dear God. And then we can definitely talk about a third one.
Well, one of our good friends that we met on social media, I know you may have seen him, is Jeff Whitmire. He does these great parody horror songs.
Yeah, he's great.
And I already know he's probably, knowing him, he's told me he cannot wait to see this. And I kind of he was the one that actually got us to that gave us the heads up that you were looking to come on a podcast again. And So I know him. He's probably already brainstorming like a way to get a song out for you. So it's like, that'll only like help it even more.
Oh, that would be such an honor. Yeah, no, I love his energy for the genre and what he does, with our mutant family and all that. I just think it's really special, and and it was fun. It was fun to like find that community, especially during the middle of the summer of 2020. That was just really needed and really important. And because again, I mean, we talked about this the first time, but Joe Bob, I didn't hire Joe Bob because he was back on Shudder. I heard Joe Bob because that's who I grew up watching. Monster Vision was my gateway into horror. The big thing for me was like you watch Monster Vision, and then it was like, okay, now where do I get the unedited version of that movie? Like that was a big thing for us. And we knew he had talked about that some of his old catalog we put on Shudder, but that was it. That was what was being discussed when we had hired him. And you can go back. I tweeted about it a couple of years ago, but like there was a moment on the set of on the set of Camera Obscura in 2016 or 2015 when I was shooting it, and I'm wearing a Joe Bob Briggs hat. And I
awesome.
made that hat because I couldn't find it. I literally just, took the graphics online and made it myself or whatever. I guess I owe Joe Bob a royalty for that. But anyway,
he's so cool, he won't care.
Yeah. No. Trust me. John is the coolest person out there. And so it was, so this was just something that kind of, again, was just created out of a true affinity for what we thought made sense. I'm like, well, I have to have a horror guru. It's got to be Joe Bob, like that's what it needs to be. The other person I thought of was like Elvira. Like that's it. Like they are the king and queen of like horror royalty to me, and especially from the era that I grew up in. So to do that, and then for it to organically become this thing, and then to see the community rally behind that, and then we get to be part of that community, and the support that Jeff and so many others of the mutant family have given us has been, I mean, it's just been amazing.
Yeah, the tweets, tweet alongs, and just the conversations that go back and forth, especially the last couple of years. I mean, that was needed more than ever, and it's like, especially when, kind of you think about it, like, back in the day when horror was very isolated, you felt isolated if you were this horror fan. And now you're even, now that it's big, the more in the mainstream and everyone's together again, but then you get the pandemic comes along, and now you're like somewhat isolated again because you're all at home. You can't go see your friends necessarily. You can't go do a thing. But with the technology, you was able to. If that wasn't there, I mean, that would have been like my best friend and I were talking. We're like, can you imagine if this was when we were in high school and the pandemic happened, where you'd never like see your friends? There was no internet. There was no Zoom. You'd call on the phone, and like, that gets tiring after a while, talking on the phone. So it's like, the mutant family and the horror community, as a whole, are just, it's one of the best communities out there by far.
I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Like, they know, just have accepted me, and it just feels, like I've found my people, it's really special. Yeah.
So, Aaron, to wrap things up, I want to give you a chance. Well, most importantly, I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners where they can see Scare Package 2. But also, I know you mentioned some projects you have coming up at the top of the show. Is there any that you're particularly excited about that you could share?
Yeah. I mean, look, these are all my babies in different ways. I mean, Scare Package is kind of like a different thing in that, that's one that, I probably spend too much time on and put my own personal money into and all that. It's literally the lowest budget movie that we have on our slate, but it's the movie I put more time and personal money into than anything else, So, but yeah, upcoming, I'm really proud of what Emily Higgins did. So again, she wrote and directed Cold Open, from the first Scare Package, the opening of Scare Package there. And she has a movie called Sorry About the Demon that's coming out in January. The artwork and the trailer will come pretty soon here after the holidays. But it's a rom-com horror movie, and it was something I haven't really seen that, and to me, I always say it's John Hughes by way of James Wan. And I
awesome.
think that's a fun thing. And because I love those movies. I love 16 Candles and Breakfast Club. Obviously, I love Breakfast Club. There's references to that and throughout the first Scare Package. So I love those types of movies. And I thought that Emily really did something special with that. And one of the mottos that we have with Paper Street Pictures is we talk about horror with heart. And that's, look, I love the Hereditaries and A24 horror and what that stuff can mean. But there are, to me, right now, the things that interest me the most are just things that kind of tug at your heartstrings in a particular way. It doesn't necessarily have to be a horror comedy. Even The Pale Door, that I had directed is, that's really about, issues with my father and my brother and, and not falling in the sins of your parental, overlords, and what that means and all that. And there was a message to it. So, but anyway, so the horror with heart, is something that's near and dear to me. And I think Emily kind of knocked that out of the park. So that's coming out in January. Obviously, folks can still see Blood Relatives if they've seen Blood Relatives. Another great example of horror with heart. It's a family vampire film, in a weird way. Yeah, I mean, just Paper Street Pictures is really that my company there. We're really trying to kind of build a brand. The idea is that hopefully when you see that logo that pops up, before a film, you're like, oh, I'm in for something different. Like that's what I want. Like I know it's going to be a horror film of some level, or at least a genre film. We got some sci-fi stuff coming, but at least a genre film. And it's going to be something that I don't think anyone's going to be like, I love everything Paper Street's ever done. And I think if somebody was that's probably wrong. That means we're probably not doing something right. I want to be challenging us to try different things and get out of our comfort zone. And I think we do that in a cool way to where if you see that logo, it means something to you. And it's like, oh, this is at least worth checking out because nothing is phoned in, nothing we do is just like, oh, let's just make this for money. Like just none of that shit exists. We are, it's all coming from like a good place. So yeah, just following all that stuff. And, but Scare Package 2 in particular, I really hope people watch and talk about and, gives them a reprieve. Right?
I have no doubt this is going to be huge. I have no doubt because I love the original Scare Package and I love Scare Package 2. I have no doubt it's going to be a huge hit among horror fans because it's made for horror fans.
Yeah, and like you said about the your production company too, is I think people that love Scare Package and they see the kind of films you're putting out, I think like you said like, oh, maybe they might not like everything there, but they know they can go in there confident knowing they're going to get something that everything was put into it by the filmmakers, and it's not just something they're throwing out there. Like there's going to be love, there's going to be care, there's going to be effort to make something great. And I think that's, and I think you already have that, probably that following going already strong, so.
Well, cool. That makes me very happy. Yeah. And yeah, it is for horror fans. It's for people like me, and I'm like, if I was out there, is this something that I would want to see? And that's the success to me. Is like, I know that I enjoy, I've traveled like truly across the world already showing this movie to folks in festivals, and I've been in London and Helsinki and Brussels and Toronto and all over, and I enjoy watching it every time. Like I'm having fun watching a movie we made, which is not something that typically happens. Usually there's a lot of like, oh God, that did not go the way it was supposed to. And there's a little of that. There's some things there that you watch, I'm like, oh, that could have been a little bit better. But for the most part, I think we're kind of punching above our weight class anyway in this movie. It's made for a lot less money than I guarantee anybody thinks it was made for. And I'm just like, holy shit, we pulled that off. Like that looks kind of right. That looks kind of right. Like I can't believe that we actually did that. And that's what, gets me going, and then just kind of inspires me to want to push more. And then, hearing people respond that I've already heard in crowds has been, which is really, really crazy and really cool. I mean, I'm so glad because again, when the first Scare Package, there was all of the festivals got shut down. We played a few festivals, in late 2019. Once it gets to 2020, most of those were shut down. So a lot of the places I couldn't go and see with an audience. So getting to do that here has been, just seeing people laugh at shit that I was like, oh, I had no idea if anybody was going to laugh at that, but they are, and you get to roll with it. It's great.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to see ourselves, we're excited to see the reaction when this hits Shudder on Thursday. Like, see all the tweets and everything, and like how it goes. And so many people, like, I love seeing when a movie comes out, it's like, oh my god, did you see this? Oh no, I got it. Now it's it. I'm watching it tonight. And like,
Oh,
especially for a
cool.
movie that we've seen already and love, like I love to see the reaction of other people to see it, because I know, like, we can be pretty confident that we know, like, our people in this horror community. So like I think Tim and I gotten pretty good at predicting what's gonna be pretty good. And
Yeah.
I think this is just gonna go nuts, like then on Thursday and Friday. Even with the holidays coming up, I think this is like a perfect holiday treat for everybody. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we're going to continue some like specific promotion, like, after Christmas and stuff, and doing some things because there's some AMC kind of chaos going on right now. And with some of that turnover and what's there, we kind of got a late start to some of our promotion of the movie. So we're going to, continue that into early in the new year and hopefully do some, maybe like a watch party and some other stuff.
oh yeah, let us know.
There's,
We'll definitely
yeah,
do
there's some
that.
stuff we're talking about. Like, this should be final by the time you guys air this in a couple days, but I think we'll have like Rad Chad might be like a guest curator, like on the Shutter platform,
Oh,
like they
nice.
do with other people, which is a lot of fun. Which basically just means it's me. Spoiler, sorry. Jeremy King does not watch that many of those
Yeah.
movies. It's just me, right? But which is fun, and stuff like that. And then right now we're working on we're doing all the blooper reels and stuff and everything, which are just insanity, and a couple special things. And we've got something that we're working on right now to put on the physical media that might be like if you remember VH1's like pop-up video like back in the
Oh
day.
yeah.
It'd be like that, but for all the horror references.
Oh, I love
that'd
those.
be
When
So it
perfect.
just
yeah,
I'd
like
love
pops
that.
up. And yeah, so and again, it's not all horror references. I mean,
yeah.
Drive and My Girl are in it. So but yeah, so we'll see. And I think that could be a lot of fun. I just finalized the graphic and we're playing with it right now. Oh, and I did a commentary track and stuff too. So
Oh yes,
Nice.
there'll
Yeah.
be some
Love
cool
those.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
think you also need to do somewhere a Rad Chad like pop-up escape room. That's what I think needs to happen.
Yeah. No, yeah. Look, hey, that's something. Look, let's do a third one or something and get some big premiere somewhere. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that
That'd
would
be
be
awesome.
insane. Well, yeah, thank you so much though for coming on again. We always love talking with you, especially because you're really down deep. You're one of you're one of us. You're a horror fan, and you just happen to make amazing horror movies. Everyone's dream, of a horror fan, getting to make the movies that they love growing up. So it's yeah. So it's always a treat to talk to you, and of course, anytime you have something, you're more than welcome to come on. Just give us the say the word, and we'll make it happen. Because yeah, we just we love the stuff you're putting out. We love talking to you. It's just awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. And yes, like I mean, I am a cinephile. Like when I mean, I'm making movies, but I'm watching movies. That's all I do. That's like literally it. So and my girlfriend's used to it. Like I'm when I wrap for the night, I'm like, okay, what movie am I gonna watch? Like that's it. That's how it goes. And so it's definitely the fact that I'm creating stuff that some person I don't know is connecting with it, and they're like, they can't wait for this. Like that is everything to me because that's what I was, and I still am, like I'm still geeking out over different people. My friend Roxanne Benjamin has a movie I just saw her trailer today for, called like There's Something with the Children or whatever, something wrong with the children. And I was like, this looks great. I can't wait to see it, and I'm excited. So like Bigos, when his Christmas Bloody Christmas is coming out, I was like, I can't fucking wait, like this is I'm definitely in that group. And so the fact that I can have a weird idea that becomes something that someone else is doing, that is just that's it. That's the best feeling in the world. So thank you guys so much for all the support, having us on here and talking about Scare Package 2 and what we're doing. It means a lot. You're some good folks here, so just thank you so much.
All right. Well, I hope you guys like that as much as we enjoyed talking to Aaron. And definitely go check out Scare Package 2 when it drops, which, as you're hearing this, it's one day away. I think it comes out on Shudder Thursday. You guys will be hearing this on Wednesday. So definitely check that out. It's going to be, I think you're going to find it a nice little holiday treat.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a fun movie, and I know it's highly anticipated. So the wait is almost over. and you'll get to see it. And it's hard because I saw it over a month ago now, and it's been killing me. I can't talk about it yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was kind of glad. And maybe, I think what we'll do is maybe in the first episode of the season we'll go through in detail what we loved about it too. When we come back.
Yeah.
Just so maybe we'll make it our feature. We'll try and do, because I want to like really get into good conversation with it. We had to refrain because spoilers. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll go into more later.
Yeah, we could feature it after the holidays at some point. But we wanted to get one last holiday movie in before the end of the year. So this one came out of so left field. Yeah. And I didn't really know anything about it until Brian had mentioned it, and Jeff.
Well, it was Cone told me about it.
Yeah, Cone, and then you, and then Jeff Whitmire was tweeting it, and I was like, "Oh my, what is this thing?" And it's Adult Swim Yule Log, which if you go on HBO Max and you see this thing, it looks like one of those Yule Log clips that you put on that just shows a fireplace. But there's an AKA attached to this title, and the AKA is The Fireplace. And this movie is completely insane. It is a horror movie. It is not a Yule log for 90 minutes. It's anything but.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
I will have to say, I would definitely encourage you to watch it, possibly before listening to this episode, because I don't think we're going to be able to get completely away from spoilers. I'm going to try to not spoil it as much as I can, but just the fact that it's just so insane is kind of a spoiler in and of itself. So, we'll go through the little housekeeping here. This one, of course, came out this year. It was directed by Casper Kelly, starring Tordy Clark as the mother, Brendan Patrick Connor as Pleatherface. Some of these are going
up every time I read
some of these are going to give you a little hint of the insanity going on here.
Yeah.
Andrea Lang as Zoe, Justin Miles as Alex, Mark Costello as the sheriff, Jonathan Pulaski as the deputy, Michael Reagan as Isaac, Jessica Fontaine as Rosa, Sean Hankinson as Ben, Hannah Aline as Beth, Sky Passmore as Henry, Daniela Maximilian as Holly, and Charles Green as the little man in the fire.
Yes, which like that guy is like one of my favorite things in movie history.
Yeah.
I think this guy, he's so funny.
The synopsis is there's just something comforting about sitting around a warm, cozy fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie starts off as a actual Yule log, a close in on a fireplace, and then things start to slowly unravel until they go completely insane. Now Brian, I honestly thought when this started, I went into this knowing this was an actual movie and not just a Yule log, because you had already told me. And
I think, unfortunately, most people are going to go into it that way, because once it got out, how else do you tell someone to watch that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
what are you going to say? Oh, by the way, watch Adult Swim. It's Fireplace. Oh, but there's more.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to say...
You always had to spoil it just to get people to watch it.
Yeah.
But I thought, for a second, that this might be one of those concept movies where it literally... the entire thing took place in that shot of the fireplace.
Right. So did I. Because it starts that way for for a while. They don't move that camera. And I have to say, what's brilliant about it is they work that into the story. Yeah. Yeah. Which is that's what this movie I tend not to use this word. I probably use it more often than I should, but I try and save it for things like this. But the absolute, literal brilliance of this whole concept, this whole idea, this whole execution of this is incredible. It's brilliant. It really is. It's nearly perfection. It's so well done. You have to it was so funny because everyone literally, Jeff Whitmire told me, he said everybody who knew him was basically messaging him, you got to see this, you got to see this, you got to see this. Poor guy. He's like, I haven't even heard of this. So he basically stopped what he was going to really watch that night, whatever he's going to, and then put this on there and live tweeted it. Unfortunately, I couldn't join the live tweet because we were actually doing our interview that night. Yeah. So, but I looked at it after, and it was funny to relive it through his tweets. And it was so funny because he was doing the same thing. He goes, oh my God. The camera could move. It's you wouldn't think it was going to, but
it stays on the fireplace, a close-in shot of the fireplace for a good bit, and then it pulls out, and there's a reason why that it pulls out, and you get kind of a logical explanation for it. And I thought, okay, now we're just going to get the wider stationary shot for the rest of the movie. And then later on, it changes again till by the end of it, it's full-fledged. None of that matters anymore.
Yeah, you forget you ever started on a fireplace.
Exactly. So it's kind of brilliant how they kind of slowly creep you into these different film styles. And the best thing I could say about this movie is that if you can predict what's going to happen next in this movie, I defy you, because
there's no way
anything can happen. It's one of those movies where anything can happen at any time. The most insane stuff you can think of is probably going to happen. It's just one of those movies that you just have to sit back and take it all in. Don't try to think about it. Don't try to predict it. You just have to sit back and wait for the ride.
The best way to describe this is if Stefan from Saturday Night Live gave a club called the New York's hottest club is the Fireplace. Yeah. Literally, and then he rambled off what was in this movie. That's what you'd get.
Pretty much
that's what you'd get, because there are so many things so off the wall, and mind you, it takes place in modern times, but yet literally finds a way to go back in time.
Yes.
And in a way that makes sense, which, okay, the antagonist, there's multiple antagonists that like travel through time and space and fireplace. Literally, there's no way to describe this movie without like
there's an attempt to explain all of this. I don't know that I totally grasped what was going on in this movie, to be quite honest, but I didn't really care.
You don't care. That's the thing. Yeah. You shouldn't care, because it's just, you got to go along for the ride on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there was some attempt to make all this make sense, and maybe if I watched it again, I would see, okay, this is why this happened, and this is why this happened. But at the time I was watching it, I was so just bewildered by everything that was going on that I just didn't grasp it. And that's not normally I would say, well, that's a detriment to the movie, right? That's a bad thing. In this movie, it's actually not. You don't care because the journey of this movie is what you're experiencing. It's not the neatly wrapped bow at the end. You're here for the journey.
Yeah, and here's, if you want a little taste, a way to give this out without spoiling this so much, Casper Kelly was the one responsible for the Cheddar Goblin sequences in Mandy.
Yes,
he did all that.
Yeah.
So if you love that, picture a whole movie like that of zaniness.
Yeah.
And you'll see what this guy has, cause it's got to have like one of the brightest futures right now, because this thing is like, I want to like, and the thing is, I watched this 3 times already, believe it or not. I watched it 3 times because I just love it so much, and you find new things each time. You get little like tidbits of stuff, and it's funny because they poke fun at things like Tim and I can relate. There's actually podcasters in there, and the sequences is so funny. It feels like sometimes when I'm saying things like, I feel like someone's gonna. I mean, not to be a big spoiler, but at one point the girl said, all right, enough with your podcast already. And I feel like someone's about to say that to me sometime, because I feel like I talk about it a lot.
I felt personally attacked during that entire sequence.
But I was okay with it.
Yeah, I was okay
because it was all in fun.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because this group comes, it's like, that's the thing. It's like the characters keep coming in, like new characters come in, old characters, and like, there's some characters that are so cliched, but it works better than any time in other movie. It's like the cliche characters in this work to a T. I mean, there's some good gore in it. There's some good effects in it.
Some really good gore.
Yeah,
surprisingly good gore.
Yeah, I mean, they hit multiple horror genres in this thing.
Well, I think that's why the trope characters work, is because there is this constant nod to horror fans that this movie is kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. This is a ridiculous premise and a ridiculous horror movie, so you kind of just go with it because you kind of expect those tropes to be there.
Yeah, funny story too with this. So I had told Julie about this. She hadn't seen it yet, and she had to put it on she was going to put on a Fireplace background for some school event she was doing, and she put this on at first, and then when she saw the credit, she says, wait a minute, why does this have credits? And then all of a sudden, like the light, she goes, oh my God, this is what Brian told me about. So she ran up and had to stop it and put it on because, the good thing is, I mean, you can get about 10 minutes into the movie before anything really like, oh no, actually, maybe not. Maybe it's more like 5 or 6, before something happens in there.
But you would know well before then that this was not a typical Yule log.
Yeah. You can tell that like it's leading up to something else because there's like some dialogue that starts. But yeah. But all I know is this was one of the best Christmas surprises that came out, and I'm so glad. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think like if I ever would have discovered it if Koontz didn't say, because I'm like, it's not like I like look for those kind of things all the time.
I mean, okay, Adult Swim would probably clue you in that this is not your typical Yule log, right?
Right, you'd expect something. I expect, but most you expect like maybe like weird music.
Yeah, but and the thing is, I'm not like a huge Adult Swim fan. I mean, I know of them. I've watched some shows.
Right, I'm in the same boat.
But I'm not I'm not like an Adult Swim person. Like, has watched Adult Swim shows for years and years. So to me, like the name of it, I just think, oh, that's some kind of mature cartoon type thing. It doesn't really like ring any bells for me. So I probably would have just easily passed this up and thinking, okay, it's a picture of a fireplace, and then maybe like some of the Adult Swim characters come walking by or something.
Or like you hear them talking in the background.
Yeah,
like little weird jokes like, "Hey, stoke the fire, dude," or something. Something
exactly,
weird like that. Like you definitely wouldn't expect like your traditional Yule log. You'd expect something different, but what you would never expect is what you get. I can tell you that. There's no way on earth.
I kind of wonder, are they hurting themselves by marketing it that way? Because like you said, we would have never heard of this. I would have never clicked on this
unless they expected this. Like one person watches it.
I guess, yeah. They just trusted the word of mouth.
Yeah, well, Koontz found out because he saw it in an article. I think it was in an article. I forgot what article he sent us. He sent it to me, and it said, like, oh, you guys got to watch this. But then, remember, even that, it, like, blew by you a little bit. You, like, must have just... Because our text feeds go now. I mean,
yeah.
We have 4 or 5 people in this text feed. So, like, you can easily miss something if you're not, like, paying attention. Especially if you're, like one of us is like traveling for the day, or we have people in different time zones, so it could easily be missed. But then it was great that everyone eventually got to see it. I think Ken might be the only one that hasn't seen it yet, or Koontz actually didn't see it. Right, he was going to watch it this weekend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we'll get his opinion too.
And I know we're dancing around because we're not really, we're not going through it, because I do want you guys to see it because it's before the holidays, so you still have some time to see it while within the Christmas spirit, so to speak.
And that's the funniest thing, because the one thing it forgets to do, there's no holiday element.
That's true. You could safely watch this after Christmas and that'd be perfectly fine.
Right. It's like it uses the Christmas Yule log as the entryway, but really it's not holiday themed at all.
That's right. Yeah. So you probably could get away with watching this any time of the year.
Yeah. It's amazing that nowadays you could still get a horror movie concept that's so original like that.
Yeah.
It's like you figure almost everything's been done. And some people do better than others. Some people tweak something that you've seen and it makes it more original. But like this is like just the fact that you you literally just kind of made a horror movie and didn't market it, but put it at the right time.
I feel like we've entered a stage where that's happening more and more, because I see more and more horror films that are just going completely off the rails. True. And I think it's a result of a couple things. I mean, a lot of the stuff we're seeing now was filmed during the pandemic,
right?
So where the people had to just get super creative. I mean, they had to go kind of off the wall to make something that would stand out. And then also, I think there's just so much good horror out there now that people are just having to come up with ways to just really stand out from the crowd. I mean, there's a lot of horror movies released every year, a ton now. So it's not like you're competing against. I can imagine these independent filmmakers.
But the thing is, they're still at the same. They're kind of at the same level due to Shudder and Screambox and stuff like that. Well, you get the presentation of it. You're kind of at the same level, because still the theaters are not back to what they were. 100%, and things come to streaming just way faster than they used to. So sometimes by the time you hear a horror movie already, it's on one of the streaming services you own. So you're at least at a level playing field, and I think that's helping, kind of introduce people to some of the newer filmmakers that maybe like only the people that are really into horror like us know.
Right? Yeah. So.
Well, and what's interesting too? It's like you think about it. That's like. Even Pearl at some level, like that was filmed almost like secretly. Everyone saw X, and then they released Pearl as like a bonus, at that festival.
Yeah.
You know, and then so then it eventually hit theaters. You know, most people had to wait for the year, but some people got to see it as a complete surprise. Like he filmed an entire prequel. And most people, almost everyone I talk to likes Pearl better actually than X.
That's crazy.
And, you know, so
I don't know.
yeah,
it's a good time.
It's
to
a
be
good
horror
time.
Fan. Yeah, very good.
Oh,
time.
very good time. Very good time.
But we're not going to talk about this one a whole lot. I mean,
yeah,
because we already had the a big interview planned for this episode. But we did want to mention this one just because it's so unique. And again, it's one of those that could easily slip under your radar. So we wanted to make sure you knew plenty about it, so that you could catch it maybe even this weekend if you have some time before your holiday.
Yeah, and especially if you're a family that has a good sense of humor, and you want to be one of these pranksters to just pop this Yule log on and see if anyone starts to notice. How great would this though be for like a holiday party?
Oh my gosh!
You put this on in the background and just make sure everyone sees that the Yule log is playing at first, and then let just people notice what unfolds.
Yeah, and then just get sucked into the insanity, utter insanity.
Yeah. I'm actually want to watch it again. It's so fun. It's just it's one of these movies that's like such an easy watch every time. Like I could see it's like one of these ones I'll just watch over and over again.
Yeah, it's
pop it on.
It's pretty great. All right, so Brian, what did you have for our beer pairing today?
So I actually found a beer called Yule Log. It's from
Very
Trim
appropriate.
Tab Brewing Company. Yeah, it's very appropriate, right? Out of Birmingham, Alabama, 9%. All I got though from it, because it's actually the brewery site didn't have it. I found it on Untapped. But it was from recent Untapped, like someone from 3 days ago had this, so it's probably some one of these brewery only releases or it's not canned, so it wasn't listed. But it's got cacao. How do you say? Is it cacao? Is that how you say it?
I have no idea.
Cacao nibs? I don't know, but it's not cocoa. I'll tell you that. I think it's cacao nibs. Dark chocolate powder, vanilla bean, and lactose. So sounds like right up my alley. I love a good that kind of beer around this time of year.
Yeah,
it's always nice.
Perfect for sitting around the fireplace for sure.
Yes, and seeing a lot of craziness.
Yeah. So we did have a fan topic food question this week.
Yeah, I kind of made this up one for both of us.
Yeah, I like this, Brian.
Over.
I knew you'd probably made this one up, but I really like it because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that is, what are your holiday movie traditions?
Right, and it doesn't have to be horror, by the way. This question,
no.
Fan topic food. Remember, it can go out of the bounds of horror.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, for me, I have what I call my core set that I have to watch every year. It's a dead set requirement. That is A Christmas Story.
Yep.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yep.
Those are my two. Those always have to watch. There's never a year that I don't watch those two. Sometimes multiple times.
Yeah.
So those are my only two that I would consider my core mandatory viewing. Then I have a whole set of ones that kind of go in and out of rotation that I watch a lot of years, maybe not every single year. That would be Ernest Saves Christmas, Santa Claus the Movie.
Yeah, those are funny. Those are my two mainstays every year.
Yeah,
it's almost reversed.
I've actually kind of like the Santa Claus, the Tim Allen movies. So, but weirdly enough, I've only seen 3. So that's the only one. That's the only one.
You haven't even seen the first two.
That's the only one I'll watch. I've seen bits and pieces of the first 2, but I won't watch them all the way through because now I've gotten so used to just watching 3 that I just watch 3. Yeah, the old classics like It's a Wonderful Life. Occasionally I'll watch that. I'm not the hugest fan of that movie. I mean, I like it, but it's too long for me to necessarily want to watch all the time.
Yeah, and to me, there's way more. I know this sounds like sacrilege because some people keep that the ultimate Christmas movie, but to me, there's way more Christmassy movies.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I don't get the feeling of the feeling of the holidays watching that movie.
I appreciate it for what it is, but there's a lot of movies that are above it on my list. I'll usually watch some version of A Christmas Carol, which might include Scrooged, and I do like the old musicals. I love White Christmas. I'll watch that one quite a bit.
Like that one, I would say it was way more than It's a Wonderful Life to me.
Yeah, so I'll watch that one probably every other year. I'll watch White Christmas. This year has been really bad for me. I haven't watched very many Christmas movies at all this year. I did watch A Christmas Story Christmas, which of course was the sequel that just came out, which we had already talked about kind of at length. And but other than that, I haven't really watched a lot of actual Christmas movies this year. I've been really behind. But by the same token, I've also been very on top of Christmas itself. So I got the decorations up early. I got the tree up early. I got shopping done early.
And thank God you did. Imagine with what you had the last week with the craziness.
I know. Yes, I got presents. I mean, so I feel like I'm in a good place from the holiday perspective, but I do kind of feel a little guilt in that I didn't watch as many of the movies that I wanted to watch, and I didn't listen to as much Christmas music as I wanted to listen to, because I usually do that a lot, but I was just so busy with work and other things that kind of stuff kind of got pushed to the wayside. But yeah, so those are at any point in time, I love Christmas. I love Christmas movies. So at any point in time, you're going to see these things just going in and out of rotation. But for me, Christmas Story and especially Christmas Vacation. If I don't watch anything else before Christmas this year, it's going to be Christmas Vacation. That's a mandatory. It's been mandatory ever since it came out. So I will never not watch that movie at least once before the holiday.
Yeah, I think for me it's pretty much the same. It's those two for sure. It's but then I also include always Santa Claus the movie and Ernest Saves Christmas. Ernest Saves Christmas I think is the one that I always do, mostly because I just, I'm a big Ernest fan, but two, that's like my favorite. It's so funny because between Tim and I always joke because the whole Mr. Santos line, but I think my favorite like sequence is when he because I always like that character he plays, where he plays that like the old woman with the neck brace.
Yes, yeah.
He's like he goes, "That's the way it goes. You have one good son and one bad son, and wouldn't you know it, the good one dies." It's like like that whole sequence to me just cracks me up. But yeah, I love that one. And actually, somehow I went down the rabbit hole with this thing. I looked up. I don't know how I got into it, but somehow I found out that the actress that played the girl in that. Harmony Star,
Yeah.
she apparently got into some serious health issues recently, and she had a GoFundMe up, and she's actually on Long Island at the was at the hospital recently on Long Island for to get her care or something.
Oh my gosh.
She was Noelle Parker. So she's that, which I thought was I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize she lived in New York, let alone Long Island. A half hour away. She's getting treatment for something at the hospital. So of course I wish her well, because she was a big part of that movie. And those some of the other things I always try and watch is Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Ooh, that one should have gone on my list. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and especially now Amazon, actually Prime, is running the original cut of it, which they lost the rights to at one point. There was a weird rights issue with that, where they took out the Kermit intro where he's on the bicycle and crashes, which was one of my favorite parts. But I mean, that's such a classic. I grew up with that one too. And one of my that one, it just still to this day I laugh at parts, with the part where remember the river bottom nightmare band drives in.
Yeah.
And remember he goes yeah, Spike don't want to do that, and he's like, I'd like to. It's just it's stuff like that. Just it brings me back to when I was a little kid, when HBO used to have run the gamut of those. And another one I always watch is Muppet Christmas Carol, which, by the way, kind of annoyed me because, I have it on Blu-ray and I have it, I think, on the digital copy. But the other day I popped it on because I had Disney Plus open already. So I popped it on there, and they have the version that was edited where they cut out the When Love Is Gone song. Because I read a whole story on it, apparently because they felt it was too heavy for kids. I'm like, that thing was released with that song. Why would you cut it out?
I know.
But if you go into the special features, they just recently added this, actually. You go into the special features on Disney Plus, and the extras, you could see, it says Muppet Christmas Carol Extended Cut, which has that song in it.
Oh, okay.
So you can watch the full version of it if you don't have the Blu-ray or digital copy. And that's just a great music. It's got Michael Caine in it. How do you,
And he plays it he plays it straight too.
Oh my God, he does. He is literally one of my favorite Scrooges that's ever played it, because and he's just so good in it when he's and when he plays the hapless Scrooge, I'm like, oh my God, he's so into this. He's playing this like he's trying to get an Oscar.
He does. That's what's so funny about it. It's so great. He's 110% Michael Caine in the movie.
It's such a great movie, and it's funny. When I first saw Muppet Christmas Carol, I remember it was right after I think it was the first movie to release after Jim Henson passed away, and the Kermit was a little off because
Yes,
it was
I
Brian
remember
Henson
that.
doing it.
Mhm.
And I remember there was like this sadness I had to the point where it distracted me from liking the movie the first time. And I saw it in the theaters. My friend Mark and I saw it in the theater. We both had the same opinion. But it's funny when after I watched it, after I had that emotional thing gone from it, and I watched it the next time, it became one of my favorites. And it's constant watch. I also try and watch every year. There's the Freddy. Do you remember Red Skelton did Freddy the Freeloader's Christmas Dinner?
Oh man, I haven't seen that in forever.
It has Vincent Price in it and Imogene Coco, and it's just classic. It's where he just tries to get this Christmas, he's convinced to have a Christmas dinner with the thing, and because Freddie the Freeloader, this homeless, he's a bum, but he's like with a heart of gold, and he basically by the end of the thing he gives away all his money. But this rich lady that like saw him return the dog gives her a whole bunch of money so they could dine at the fancy restaurant. And it's a great little like tale. It was like it's kind of almost theatrical, like the way like it was almost like recorded on a stage. It looks like.
Yeah, I remember watching that like way back in the day, and I'm glad you said that because I don't need to go seek that one out again.
Yeah, I have a DVD of it. Like, it released it on DVD as Red Skelton's Christmas Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can find it on YouTube pretty regularly if you look around.
Oh, I need to mention Elf because that's
that's another
that's a
one.
New tradition. Elf.
Yeah,
that's really truly a holiday classic now.
Oh, and one more I think I do watch, but this one I watch kind of throughout the year too. But I watch it at the holidays also, and that's Jingle All the Way. Just because Arnold Schwarzenegger in that, I mean, I tell you, it's so funny. He's like probably one of the predominantly famous action heroes, right? But to me, his comedy is my favorite. And sometimes I think I think it's because he doesn't have the physical, like shape for a comedy. That makes sense. Like, you expect him to just be shooting and like the Terminator, but like some of the things he does that like in Jingle All the Way to me is like in Kindergarten Cop and those kind of movies and Twins, that's like some of my favorite Arnold Schwarzeneggers actually. And Jingle All the Way, just because it's just the whole thing is so ridiculous, and going through like all those action figure hunting with my friend Mark all the time, like I live some of that stuff where you tried to get like the hard to find action figure for the year. And like the thing is, obviously we didn't do what he did and wait to the last minute, but of course it made the movie brilliant and insane in so many ways. And actually, did you see, you got to look on Instagram. Arnold Schwarzenegger was at a food like a gift giving and charity event, and he recorded it on Instagram, and he's so Arnold in it because he's talking about it. He's like, we love to give the gifts, and it's a wonderful feeling. And he goes, and look who's here. And because some guy dressed up as Turbo Man, he's like, it's Turbo Man, like in that movie Jingle All the Way. And I'm like, it was just, I couldn't stop laughing because I'm like, of course he was Jingle All the Way.
That's like your movie.
It's like, it's your movie, dude. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's got like the heart of gold. I mean, as big as the guy is, he's got that big of a heart. I mean, he's like does all these kind of great things. But it's just funny to hear him say that, and I was cracking up. So I'm trying to think if there's any other one I'm missing in there. But Elf's definitely in there.
I've gotten my brother Kevin is such a huge fan of Christmas with the Cranks that I've started watching that one recently. I don't know.
I thought that was okay. I mean, it wasn't.
He's like a huge fan, so I've started watching that one every past couple of years. And another one I had seen, I was looking through some Christmas movie list. I don't really think of this one as Christmassy, but it is Love Actually. I really like.
Yeah. A lot of people consider that like a holiday. You know what? Actually, one is good too. It's like funny. It's like kind of borderline of that. At some level, it's like The Holiday. With Jack Black and Kate Winslet. I love that movie. I love that. Just because Jack Black is like me in that, where the do, and he's always like humming a song or something.
The Jim Carrey How the Grinch Stole Christmas has definitely grown on me over the years. I don't know that I really liked it when it first came out. I thought it was okay, but it's really grown on me over the years. I tend to watch that one every now and again, and then of course Home Alone. I should.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first two Home Alones. After that, and Cone will tell you that Cone was raving to Mark, my friend Mark, and I about Home Alone 3, how great it was, and we rented it, and it was the most unfunny thing I've ever seen, and we were so mad, and we never let Cone live that down. Just bring it up to him, and it's like funny. I'm gonna bring it up in the text feed tomorrow, and you'll see the reaction that it causes. Yeah, there was but that one's definitely one in there. And here's one that it's funny. It's like you wouldn't think of it as a holiday movie, although it totally takes place around Christmas time. And it's probably, I think it's one of these movies that people either love it or hate it. And I don't know if you've seen this. I want to just I'm trying to look for the year of it real quick before I say it, because it's kind of on the old side. It was where, oh my god, what year is this? Where is it? Here it is. 94. It's Trapped in Paradise. Do you ever see that?
I don't think so.
It's with Dana Carvey, Nicolas Cage, and John Lovitz, where they play these bank robbers and they get stranded in a town over the holidays, and it's like they basically robbed the town bank, but yeah, they get stuck in the mayor's home.
I think I did see this, but I think I saw it in '94 and have not seen it since. I think that's
okay.
I
Yeah.
think it's fine.
That movie is great because I think Dana Carvey in it is so good, and Nicolas Cage is like so different Nicolas Cage in it, but the same Nicolas Cage, if that makes sense. Like it's pretty good. Oh, and another one, it's funny, is another like cheesy one that I will admit that I've seen so many times and I just love it is oh my god, While You Were Sleeping.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
With Sandra Bullock. But there, I'm sure there's some other ones I'm forgetting, but yeah, like I think those first four I mentioned are definitely the mainstays for sure that have to be watched every year. Same with you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So see, Tim and I have a soft side. We're not just all
That's
horror.
right, not all horror. Yeah, so we hope you guys do have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful New Year. We are taking 3 weeks off, I think. We're going to have our January disc memorament will come out on time. So that one will be out the first Tuesday of January, so you'll know all your releases for January. But we're going to take a little bit of time off, regroup, and come back swinging for season 7.
Yes, it will be. I think this will be an exciting season. I think we're gonna have. I already feel like we've got like the first 4 movies we want to do. And the funny thing is, for the first time in a while, like our milestone episode opens up the season.
Yep. So if you guys have any ideas for what you want to see in season 7, definitely drop us a line. I mean, we're still going to be monitoring our social media and our email over the holidays, so feel free to get in touch, and we'll see you back here in 2023.
So everyone, wishing you a healthy and happy holidays. Hope everything, everything is just nice and peaceful and relaxing, and you get to spend time with family as much as possible. As I know the last couple of years, it hasn't always been the case. Hopefully you all will get to do that this year. And just we'll be here for you guys, and we can't wait to come back for season 7.
See ya.